Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hope for Animals Summit. This is presented by In Defense of Animals and animal communicator Joan Ranquet. We're delighted to introduce you to speakers who provide rays of hope for the animals during this time of political unrest. For those of you who are aware, we have a website, a web page that's idausa.org/Hope Summit, and that's where you will find all of the advocacy kits that we've put together for each speaker. I'm your host, Lisa Levinson, Director of In Defense of Animals Sustainable Activism Campaign, and we offer emotional and spiritual tools for animal activists. Please turn your microphones and your webcams off during the duration of the webinar, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And at that time, you can ask our speaker questions through the chat box monitored by Sally Jenkins. Here's my co-host, Joan Ranquet, who will introduce you to our featured speaker today.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. Okay, so today we have Marc Ching, and he is the founder of the Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization focused solely on rescuing abused and neglected animals, providing full rehabilitation services, and ultimately working to find them forever families. After learning about the brutal practice of torturing dogs before slaughtering them for meat during the Yulin Dog Meat Festival in China, Ching knew that his life would never be the same. Posing as a wealthy American buyer, Ching goes undercover to slaughterhouses and secretly videotapes the torture of innocent dogs. Ching's heroic efforts are followed by 1 million people on social media and featured on CNN, CBS News, ABC News, Entrepreneur, the New York Daily News, the Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, The Dodo, and more. And also we have Kiana Kang, who has been involved in the dog and cat rescue world since first volunteering for Animal Avengers in the late 1990s. On her own time, she has rescued and rehomed numerous stray dogs and actively managed numerous cat colonies by using the TNR method. It wasn't until late 2015 that she turned her concentration toward the dog and cat meat consumption in Asia. She is currently spearheading the Ditch Dog Meat campaign for In Defense of Animals. And then also we have Valerie, who's Marc's right-hand person with us. So we've got quite an amazing group of people, and I just want to thank you so much for the work you do, and thank you for joining us.
Wonderful. So we'd like to invite Marc to begin with us today.
Hi. Yeah, you guys can hear me, correct?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I guess we'll start with talking about our foundation and the things we're doing in Asia. Uh, we started as a local-based organization, and 2 years ago in 2015, I was first made aware of the dog meat trade, specifically the Yulin Dog Meat Festival that happens in June. Uh, I was thinking about it yesterday. It's actually like 3 months away, which is crazy that it's so soon. In asking what we were talking about today, you guys had raised the thing that we're speaking about how we can end the festival. I think the potential to do that before this year's festival is highly unlikely. However, we can hope to accomplish that. But in China, I think since we first started, we've made a lot of headway and, ground. And so we started by documenting how you guys had said, going undercover into slaughterhouses, uh, documenting how they process what they do and things like that. And at that time, raising awareness was our main goal, which it probably still is now. When people see what's happening, they get upset, and that's what pushes others to stand up and to speak out, or that's what I believe at least. I think bearing witness, which is what we do, is so important because it unifies people into a base that one person now becomes a million people, and that is what brings true change. In China, we have a couple of things going. One is we have our microchip initiative where we are trying to microchip tens of thousands of dogs in the effort to show as trucks are stopped or as dogs are rescued from slaughter by scanning them that there are people's pets. In China, we believe, as well as Chinese activists, that 80% of the dogs used for consumption are stolen. Where it differs from Korea, where they actually raise dogs for meat, Cambodia, where they get most of the dogs from strays. In China, it seems that most of the dogs are stolen. Someone's family member is being kidnapped, tortured, and eaten. And so we hope that this microchip initiative goes to prove that and provide the evidence so we can take it to the government and say, hey, this is what they're doing. They're stealing people's private property, which by law they have the obligation to protect people's rights. And so that's one. When it comes to Yulin, we actually met with the government already, which I think was pretty awesome for being nobodies. And so we did that. Working with the Yulin government is tricky because they're so afraid of like Western societies and the media and I guess what they term propaganda and things like that. And so our relationship with them is pretty unconcrete. However, they've made gestures that, hey, we're willing to work with you on certain things. And so we're hoping that we can fortify a strong base and work together to stop this festival. They claim that they are not supporters of the festival. They claim that they speak out against it, which I kind of don't see, but we are trying to work together to show the world that, hey, the Yulin government isn't about this festival and that it's the people that have created it. We are trying to get the government to work with us to shut down trucks before they even come into the city for the festival, with the goal that, hey, if we can shut down and stop 10 to 15 trucks, then, hopefully you can take away from the festival. That's like kind of our plan this year, to stop them before they even come into the city. Also, we have started a letter writing campaign, different from a petition where human beings that are adults or whoever write or sign something. We have started a campaign where children from across the world are writing these letters that I will take personally to Governor Chen Wu, which is Yulin, or the Guangxi governor, which is the city that Yulin's in. And so we're trying to amass a few tens of thousands, hopefully 100,000 letters. I actually have a lot of letters, which is pretty amazing, that have come from all over. I've gotten some from China, Australia, most of them from the United States, but from the United Kingdom as well. And I guess that's kind of what we're doing overseas. A couple of big projects is that we're trying to close down a few slaughterhouses. Uh, and I think we're going to be able to accomplish those things. I think that will be a victory for the animals and the activists out there to say, like, wow, they've actually shut down a slaughterhouse in China permanently. And so that's some of our goals in the upcoming future. And also, we're making the Hunan province kind of like our target province to work in, to start the awareness and the activism and the education of the Chinese people in regards to animals and dogs. And so I guess that's what we're doing. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your programs and all of your efforts to help the dogs in the area. So, Kiana, are you available to tell us a bit about the campaign that you're working on?
Yes, hi. I am in the beginning stages of working on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm in the beginning stages of working on my campaign, and right now, the way I want to approach it is in a positive way. Instead of trying to take the route of uh, shaming the government and shaming the people and the industry, what I want to do is take a different approach from positive that could bring in people and get the support of the Korean people and everyone alike in all over the world, to just highlight the dogs in a positive way, in a way that instead of campaigning the dogs by, showing them that you shouldn't eat dogs, just highlighting the purpose and their value, campaign regarding their values as guide dogs, as companions, just in all acts of life, and whether you're young or you're old, it's just a positive way of changing the minds by showing people through visuals and changing the mind that way instead of forcing it down people's throat. It's just a new approach, and I'm trying it that way and to see if it works, and hopefully it will be welcomed and not criticized. It was just be an anti-dog and cat meat campaign from a different perspective.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about the campaign. I know you mentioned you're just starting that and trying to reframe it so that it has a new approach with the Korean people. So I'm wondering if any of the people who've tuned in to this presentation today, if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to go ahead and mention them in the chat box, and then we have our two guest speakers who can answer them for you. So I think Sally's in the chat box, and let me make sure we can hear her too.
I'm here. See, at the moment, it sometimes takes a minute for people to type in their questions for our speakers.
Can you add your video, Sally?
Yes. There you go.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Joan? Did I hear you?
No, I wanted to add something. Can I add something?
Yes, please, of course.
Sure. Or maybe Valerie might want to add it, but 2 days ago, our federal dog and cat meat prohibition bill was announced in the United States. Our foundation, Animal Hope and Wellness, in working, we hired Social Compassion, which is a great nonprofit that does a lot of legislation work. In conjunction with the congressman and a couple other congressmen, we sponsored a bill to ban the eating of dogs and cats in America. We don't really eat dogs and cats here, although there's cases. There's one in Hawaii where someone's dog was stolen off of a golf course and they cut off the feet, they ate it. And there are a couple cases like that. It's more that if we're going to tell another country, Korea, Cambodia, China, what have you, not to do something, we have to lead by example. And so that's a new development that is or is helping the cause and pushing it forward. And the Gupo Meat Market deal, where we're closing down like this huge historic center, or we're trying to revitalize it to take out the slaughterhouses and give them all a new opportunity. And so I just wanted to mention that as well.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for you, Mark. I think I read fairly recently that you managed to get one of the largest slaughterhouses, and I forget which country you were in, but you managed to, and I don't know how you did it, but you convinced them to shut down. Did I get that correct?
So that's what we're talking about. And so that place is called Gupo Meat Market. They have been in existence for over 250 years, or that's what people have told me. I mean, and so it's this historic place where there's 17 dog slaughterhouses and 10 slaughterhouses that do goats, chickens, ducks, lamb, cats, stuff like that. But it's a pretty terrible place, in my opinion. Numerous activist groups have contacted them to try to close down and shut them down. They've never agreed to anything until now. We've had 3 meetings with them since, and they're very motivated to change. And I can't say that we're more special than anybody else, but I can say this to touch on what Kiana said. Our approach is very different from most groups, where some people are very upset and some people attack them and might say mean things. We always try to push towards compassion and be like, look, I understand that you guys have been doing this for a while, but how can we work together to change and push forward and resolve a situation and help each other? And so that has, I think, been our biggest benefit in working with them. But it's a long process still. And so, yeah.
That's great, though. What progress. We have a question here from somebody, I don't have their name, saying, what can us regular folks do to best support the cause? Like donations, petitions, what would you suggest?
Well, this is my opinion, and so like I'm not that smart, but I'll say this. Petitions in from our country to another country, the efficacy to me is very little. Why is because, who are we Americans signing something, and we're not even signing it anymore. It's like we click on it on the internet, and it's like, to me, I don't know, but does it have an effect? I don't think it has the effect that people might hope, and so we have never done a petition yet. Would we in the future? I don't know. I think the biggest way is to raise awareness by when you see something on social media, sharing it, making your voice heard, maybe adopting a dog from the meat trade. Because when you're walking down the street and somebody says, "Wow, your dog's so cute," you can tell them, "Well, did you know that my dog was going to be eaten and tortured in the process?" Uh, and third, you know, trying to help out wherever help is needed in regards to, I would hope, all animals, so we can all be more compassionate to those in the world. And so that's my opinion.
Thank you. Kiana, did you want to add anything to that from your perspective? You might be muted.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
I think, I think that's why Mark and I get along, and Valerie too, is we have the same position and attitudes, because we have, in order to solve anything, you have to understand the people that you're trying to work with and work against. It's kind of like knowing I'm not going to call them our enemy, but knowing your opposition, to understand the opposition. And once you understand the opposition, you could understand where they're coming from and then come up with solutions to the problem with the understanding. If I just hear my side and try to push my opinion and my attitudes towards them, they're not going to listen. But if I listen to them and come up with a plan where I hear them, they'll hear me. So I think that's why we all get along, and that's why Mark is so effective, because he has adopted this attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with him, and I, as a friend, and I support Mark. I mean, he is the one that made me aware of my own people. I mean, I kind of knew that they ate dogs, but who are we to say they can't eat dogs? But then when he told me about the torture, then I realized that is a different um, perspective to the dog meat for me as a Korean. And I have educated other Koreans about why they shouldn't eat dog meat, and why it's different from eating pigs or stuff. It's the intentional torture that they inflict, and they don't argue back. They understand. So through the understanding that I got from Mark, I was able to convey that message to other people, other Koreans, to make them aware. And, that's how you start. You change one person, that one person changes another person, and so on. And that's the best we could hope for.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Joan, I believe you have a question.
Yeah. So this is so profound what you guys are doing, and I think it's. I wanted to make a little comment on it too. Mark Balcom was our speaker the other day, and one of the more interesting
Jonathan.
things, or Jonathan, right? Jonathan, thank you. One of the things that he showed a picture of a cow and a dog, and he said, over, in some parts of the world, the cow is completely revered and the dogs are eaten, and in our country, the cows are eaten and the dogs are revered. So it's interesting to me, that was it's, pretty strong picture, pretty clear. And I think that it's also really hard. What I love what you guys are doing about the compassion piece is, I think that people have a certain, they can say, well, this is our tradition and this is what we do. And people don't always have such thought behind, well, maybe that tradition isn't great, or maybe how we're doing this isn't right. And so I think it's really amazing that you guys do go in with such compassion. And I guess one of my questions would be for each of you, do you find that some of this stuff is really built in tradition? Is there something is there some reason? Is there some reason it got started? Is there some other replacement they could do that would feel like, I mean, I know that I grew up in Seattle, and outside of Seattle, some of the tribes, go kill a whale every year. And as we look at conservation, that's maybe not the smartest thing we can do. Is there some other thing, some other ritual that could be fulfilled in doing this? Is this based in something that is traditional, I guess?
Mark, do you want to take that one?
I was going to actually say I could answer a little bit of that, I think. I don't know. Sure, go ahead. Okay.
Valerie, can you add your video, please?
Sure. Not that I love this, but hi. A little bit of a wreck. Well, what's really fascinating is people say a lot of times this is tradition, and yes, it is a tradition in a lot of parts of the country. I mean, in Eastern Asia, but places like Cambodia and Indonesia, where they are doing these new things where they cut the paws off or they burn a dog alive, those are all new quote unquote traditions. These are things that the younger generation are actually coming up with. I know we have a sense of like, if we could just get the old people to change, or once the young people come up, that this will stop happening. It's just not the truth. And unfortunately, they're finding new ways and new delicacies for the dog meat. And so it's hard to, when you say it's just a tradition, it's not. And the tradition that is there, that has been there, is based on mythical reasonings. They think, especially in the summer when it becomes warm, they believe in eating the dog meat cools the body. So that's one of the main reasons. So Yulin is the summer solstice, and so is Boknal. So they believe that you're going to eat the dog meat and it's going to cool you off in the summer. So it's really sort of about educating them that these things aren't true. And that's part of the problem, is how do we educate within the country? Because again, we're coming at it as foreigners. So we need to have a big enough group within the country to help educate and change those old traditions. And then I don't know about the Cambodians and the Indonesians. I don't know. Mark could speak more to that, of the increasing torture that they're inflicting on these animals. And I don't know if it's just from being an oppressed society, which I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. As you know, any abuser or torturer, they take it out on the person that's lower than them, beneath them. The husband who abuses his wife is because he feels powerless in his life. And so here you have countries and people and citizens that don't make a good living, don't have a lot of education, and so this is what they're left with. At least that's from what I've been hearing and learning from Mark, and maybe Mark has a different angle on that, but that would be what I would speak to on the sense of tradition.
And that you work primarily in China?
No, we are in every country. I mean, not every country, but we have people. So we have a shelter in China that we have a lot of dogs at now, and we're working closely with people inside of China. Korea, the same thing. We don't have a shelter yet, but we're working on that, and we have people there that we work with when Mark goes. Cambodia, we have a lady that we're working with, and that's where Mark has seen. That's where most of the dogs have their paws cut off, are in Cambodia. And Indonesia, Mark's only been there. I'm not sure how many times you've been there, Mark. 2 or 3 times?
4 times.
4 times. So I'm not sure he's been able to save any dogs there, right? Mark, we've never brought any dogs back from Indonesia.
No, but we've had dogs in the vet that died.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
It's Indonesia, he says, is the worst. It's a rough place. So.
I guess I'll answer the questions too. I want to talk about that cow analogy metaphor thing that you mentioned, and then get into the tradition. in certain parts of the country, they revere the cow. That is true. What people don't realize is in India, while they revere the cow, they are one of the largest consumers of dairy. And so they enslave the cow. It's not to point anything out, but, and it's so weird how people always bring that analogy up. Is a dog worth more than another animal? In my opinion, no. I have a We run a dog foundation, and so we do a lot of work with dogs. But suffering to me is equal across the board, and I think all animals deserve a chance. However, uh, in many parts of the world, they are intentionally torturing these animals, and that's really why we're there to speak out against that. If they ban the dog meat trade in these countries, we will be very, 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 very pleased and excited. If they pass the animal cruelty law, because many of these countries do not have that, that would be a huge win as well, not just for dogs, but all animals. In China, I can torture a cow if I want to in the middle of the street because there is no law protecting that cow. In America, while we have factory farms, and I believe that those animals are tortured there as well in a different way, if we torture a cow in the street, I might go to prison for that. And so that's the change that we hope to see and produce. About tradition and the dog meat trade, tradition starts somewhere in the past, whether it's 100 years, 500 years, and at that time we do the best we can. What influences a culture's belief are so many things. However, as we evolve as human beings and as we learn, as people teach us and events teach us, and as war, as scripture, as writings, well, as we learn, we become different people. And so change has to happen. In America, we used to lynch people and we had slavery and we hung them. And we learned in time that, hey, we shouldn't do that. And so this tradition thing that they bring up, that this is a part of our tradition to do this to an animal, doesn't suffice for me. It's not. It's not a reason. You see, dog meat is not something that the poor man is eating in Cambodia. Dog meat is not something that the poor man is eating in China. These are delicacies. In Cambodia, dog meat is the most expensive meat out there, more expensive than steak, more expensive than like a filet in America. And so that thing on, well, they have to eat, that is not true. Uh, you know, do dogs strike a different chord with people in the Western states? They do, because they are our pets and our family members. In these countries as well, they are their pets too that are being stolen. And so I think it brings into play a different argument that, you know, I don't know. But anyways.
Thank you, Marc.
No, I mean, for me, I can't believe that half the things people do are tradition. So I think it's really, I mean, I think it's important though for people to understand, so that they can have compassion where this is even coming from.
Thank you.
Because
We have a
otherwise
few
we
more.
would just be really angry.
Can I just add? Can I just add to that? I've been speaking with a lot of Korean people, and there is a there is there is a fight within Korea themselves against the dog meat. There are people that are saying it's tradition, and there are people saying it's bad habit, that it came about because of the famine after the Korean War. So there's the fight amongst the Koreans as to dog meat. Is it tradition? Is it not? So that's happening, amongst the Koreans. And for me, Korea, I listen to the Koreans. I listen to the younger generations, and they're not eating dog meat. And these famous Bolshintang restaurants are closing down because the younger generation, they don't want that. They are seeing dogs as their companions. They are seeing it as their children, because they are deciding not to have kids right away, that they want to, back in the day, tradition was to get married, have kids, but now they don't want to get married anymore. Well, much later. They just want to work, and they're fulfilling that by having pets as their companions. So they are seeing that change, and the business industry is seeing that change. So I just want people to know that within Korea, they're fighting against tradition. Is it tradition or is it bad habit? Tradition or bad habit?
Thank you, Kiana. We have a few more questions coming up. So we have, this is Lynn Cullins from the Mountain Lion Foundation. And Lynn says, thank you for your good work. I think that the dog meat situation in other countries can inform Americans' approach to pets and wildlife. In part, understanding that our everyday decisions about animals are so rooted in culture is valuable because it makes us stop and think. How is killing a coyote for fun different from killing a dog for meat, for example? Or is it okay to kill if we're eating the meat? Most Americans would say yes, but presented with eating dogs would say no. So my question is this: how do we further culturally understand while also enabling people to question personal ethics in their own cultural frame?
Try to repeat that last part that you said.
Yeah, how
The
do we
question
further?
is,
The question is, how do we further culture understanding while also enabling people to question personal ethics in their own cultural frame?
I can answer that if nobody wants to.
Sure.
Sure, I
Okay,
talk a lot.
thanks.
So, in everything that we do, I can't speak about other groups, but in everything that me and Valerie do, our core is based on education. We believe change comes in two ways: through the government, then passing a law, but also through the people. That the people, especially the younger generation, that's who we have to push to, that's who we have to teach. Compassion is the principle that we're based upon. And so when it comes to ethics and speaking against your culture and things, I think it's about trying to push people to understand that animals are no different from we, that they have feelings, because a lot of people don't get that a cow has a child, and when you take the child away, they feel that rip, how I would feel if somebody took my children away. And so how to re-educate a whole culture? I mean, I don't think the world's going to turn vegan ever while I'm alive. Uh, However, I think if we can bring the topic of animals into our schools, if we can stand up against the meat and dairy industry, especially here in America, that is rooted deep within our school programs, teaching our kids, hey, the only way to get calcium is from milk. The only way to do such and such is from such and such. I think that's where it starts. I think that people and young children will start to learn that there are other resources, almond milk, beans, different approaches to do or accomplish the same thing. And I think it's that generation and the next that will really change, you know, the dog for food, the cow for food, or even killing a coyote for fun. All those things to me are unnecessary that we need to address and find solutions for. And I believe that lies in education.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. So we have a question here from Carolyn, and she says she's wondering how large-scale dog slaughterhouses like in Changhong slaughter the dogs. Do they have any regulations at all? And if they're slaughtering thousands a day, they must not have time to torture for hours as well.
I guess I'll answer that too. And so I want to say this. I've been to a lot of slaughterhouses, a lot meaning maybe close to 100. I've gone from different regions, wherever the dog meat trade is. I've probably gone there. So I've gone to Indonesia, different islands. I've gone to different parts of China, Mongolia, Korea. In China, China is very different from Korea. Korea is very different from Cambodia. They're all different. In China, I don't think in large slaughterhouses like Changchun, they're focused on so many things like that. They're focused mostly on supply. And so what you see there is very different from what you see in Cambodia. What you see there is completely different from what you see in Indonesia. The spectrum of cruelty and torture differs in each country, where I feel Cambodia and Indonesia are the highest on the spectrum. And this might not be true now, but I've been to Vietnam, I think 2 times or maybe 3 times. I think they're the lowest. I've heard from other activists that they do some crazy things in Vietnam, but I've never seen it, so I couldn't attest to that. In China, I think China is mid-grade. I think those large factories that I have been to, they'll beat a dog up, bowl the dog after, stuff like that. Many times those dogs are still alive. Does that constitute as deliberate torture? I couldn't tell you because I'm not, I think it's all torture, but they don't stop to really brutalize them, although they're beating them up, smashing them in the face, hitting them with pipes to try to accomplish their goal. In China, there's a lot of restaurants and small places that do torture. They hang them by the tree, they skin them alive. When you look on Facebook or social media, you'll see specific instances where they're cutting their feet off, things like that. Those tend to be in smaller places and rural areas rather than the large factory type of operations like how we have factory farming here. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Marc. And there was a comment from Sarah here saying that I think it was related to things we talked about before, but it's still relevant. They also believe that torture causes the animal to release adrenaline, which makes the meat taste sweeter. And she said also saying, thank you for talking about the torture happening within factory farms. So that was a comment. We have a question from Leanne Thorne who says, Marc, when you talk about the government, are you speaking on that of other countries? So I think, do you mean, Leanne, is Marc representing the government to other countries, or do you mean, does Marc speak to other governments, other countries' governments? If you could just clarify. I think, I'm not quite sure which way she meant it. But
Well, I guess I can answer both questions. I don't know how we got so lucky, but as unlucky as we might be, or I might be, we're lucky just in general that I think when you try to do something good, the world kind of takes care of you. And so we've been lucky enough to have a relationship with our current Congress. We work with Elsie Hastings, and I think our influence in with other representatives are growing. Valerie does a lot of that work too, and so she is in constant contact with them, which is great. In time, through what we've accomplished as a group, the governments in other countries have taken notice of us. And so my first meeting in Yulin, I was surprised that they knew almost everything about me. They knew exactly who I was. The chief of police, actually last year at Yulin, was the one who followed me. They brought somebody from like the political affairs committee, knew exactly who I was. And so they met with me for a couple of reasons. One is because they don't really see me how they see other groups, like, die China, burn in hell. We've never really said those things. We've always about awareness that we show things that's happening, and we work to try to find solutions. And so the question on working with government, we're actually working directly with foreign government, directly with the Korean government, directly with the Chinese government, and I've also spoke with people from the cabinet from Cambodia, where we're also working in. Those are the 3 countries that we have direct contact with the government. Hopefully, we can work with other countries as well, but currently that is not happening.
thank you. And I have 2 questions here around. So Elizabeth is saying, I've known this for many years now through Animals Asia and social media, but I never heard anyone talk about it. She said she's wondering how you prepare yourself before you witness the horrific sights and sounds and how you recover after. And that's clear. She's in Australia, so she's asking that. And Trish has a similar question around what you do for self-care, since what you're seeing and experiencing is so horrific.
So I guess that's my question.
That is you, yes.
Yeah. I guess I went to this thing called Circle V, and it was this vegan event, and they had other people there who go undercover. Someone from Animal Equality was there. Somebody from another group, I think Animal Liberation or something. And I met with these people, and they seemed normal. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that. How can you be normal? And so maybe it's different for somebody else than it is for me. I can only speak through how I feel. Uh, they have seen horrific things too, in regards to pigs and cows, which I have seen myself because I document for other groups. How you prepare yourself to do what someone like me has to do, there is no preparation. I think you become who you need to be in that moment. Every time before I leave for a trip, I am I'm scared. I think the hardest part is coming home and forgetting who you are, forgetting how to look at your children, and forgetting how to love something. Uh, Self-care. That's pretty funny. There is none. Uh, I think one of the best things I did was I took a break from everything. In September last year, I took a hiatus from the foundation, and I didn't travel or do anything for a few months. I restarted in January, and my January trip was okay because I did a lot of government work. I just got back from Asia, and it was pretty rough. I did something that so, sorry, are we still there? Someone
Yes,
tried
you're
to call
here.
me.
Yeah.
I did something that was outside of my scope. I documented some stuff for the child sex trade, which was probably very hard to see. And so I think I'm struggling in all those aspects. Uh, but I don't practice self care because I don't know what that means. Uh, but, the suffering of the animals is probably a lot worse than what anything I have to do or deal with. And so, you know, I'm alive, and I guess who knows? But thanks.
Thank you, Marc.
Mm. Well, I'll take a moment just to comment, Marc, and I know that it's very difficult to see uh, what you've witnessed. You've been a witness, and for many people, that's like a secondary trauma to witness what's happening and the abuse happening to others. And I just wanted to share with you and other activists that there are self-care resources out there, and that's part of what we do within Defense of Animals is provide those resources. So definitely tune in. And actually, next week we're going to have a compassion fatigue therapist, who's Jennifer Blau, and she's going to be sharing a whole webinar about self-care tools. So that might be of use to you and to others who are on the front lines.
Sure. It sounds
Mm.
pretty dreamy, but sure. Thank you.
I have a comment here from Sonny from New York. He's a US Marine Corps veteran, and he says, I've known a lot of brave men, and I consider Marc as one of my personal heroes. And we have a couple other comments. You have shown us just how brave and dedicated to this cause you and all others who are fighting for this are. I know that our prayers are with you, and that's from Claire in Australia. And a couple others calling you a true warrior. And we have another question. Marc, any plans to come back to DC to get House Resolution 30 passed, or for the Worldwide Dog Meat March on May 20th?
So I'll speak about that, and I'll speak about our government work here in America. Uh, we are returning to DC. We have our own resolution out now with LC Hastings as well. It's the local or the federal ban on dog and cat meat. We have a press conference coming up in DC where Valerie and I will attend, and other people, some of our supporters who have a much larger voice than we do are going to attend as well. In regards to HRES 30, we haven't really determined it yet, and not because we don't think it's a great measure, but because we're actively working with the Yulin government. And so we are waiting to see what that relation changes into. If the the HRS 30 is all about condemning the Yulin Dog Meat Festival. Our hope is that we can forge this strong relationship specifically with the government itself, uh, hopefully bring in Hastings, and do it a different way to where let's work together to find out how we can end this. As the Yulin government, you said you're against it. Well, be against it and join with us and stand with us. That right now is kind of like our goal as me and Valerie, just as a small foundation. But if Hastings tells us, Mark, we need you at a press conference, we need you to speak out, we need you to do stuff and such, our answer will always be yes, because we are enamored and we are honored that he is the great man that he is, and we always want to do our part. Uh, you know, as a whole, as a bill, uh, I don't know what happens when it passes. I don't know what America does when it happens, you see? And so we are trying not to put our faith in anything undetermined. Currently, because we have a standing relationship with the Yulin government specifically, we are trying to address them directly, saying what measures can be taken. We have the support of Congress. Uh, can they help us? And can they help the government as a whole? But I guess everything's to be determined. And we are also working with Hastings and doing what he would like us to do as well. So, sure.
Thank you. And Valerie made a comment here that your federal bill is HR 1406, and she said we encourage people to write letters to their local reps. I think, Joan, you had another question you wanted to ask.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is great that you're doing is engaging kids and getting them to write letters. And I was wondering if is there a place where they could send the letters? I mean, is that something you handle in your organizations, or do you have a specific address? Are there, and also, do you have information that you give out to schools about this program? Do you have a little video, anything that uh, we could all be giving to our friends that have kids?
Well, I think Valerie should touch on some of that, but I'll talk about the school thing. You know, because we're so small and really in the infrastructure, it's just me and Valerie. Uh, we're always open to suggestions, and so that kind of like instructional video, I think we're going to do that. So thank you. Valerie can tell you about how to get the letters to us, things like that. But also too, it's the people who want to be involved who should take the step to approach their schools and be like, I saw this or I follow this foundation, and you don't tell them like, they're torturing these animals, so that's what we want the kids to read. But you tell them like, someplace in the world they are unkind to dogs, and we have a campaign where we like the kids to write to just express how they feel and what dogs mean to them and animals, and we would like to share that with the government. And the goal is, when you have something handwritten, it means more than pressing a button on the internet, or in my opinion, it does. And when it's coming from children, something that most of us have and once was, to me, it conveys a stronger message than, me, some 38-year-old guy saying something, and I think I know everything. And so, like, but I'll let Valerie finish up.
Well, thank you.
Valerie, can you turn on your video?
I am.
Thanks.
I'm on. Yeah. I actually, I just also texted in the chat there that there is a great video on YouTube, and you can find it under, it's called Draw My Life, dog meat trade in South Korea. It's totally appropriate for kids. It's a cartoon, and it talks about the dog meat trade. And it's an incredible video. Somebody sent it to us that they were using in their school in Florida, and I highly recommend it. But yes, I think Mark and I should probably put one of our own together because it's highly informative. And then kids can send the letters to us at the rescue. And if they go on our website, there's information about the letter writing campaign that they can find out about who to address it to and what we're looking for. We basically just want kids to reach out and say why dogs are important to them. They can draw pictures of their dogs. They can send pictures. I mean, we've had all sorts of things coming in from kids who are so amazing and sweet. And hopefully that would have some impact on these people. I don't know. We're hopeful. Mark, comes up with ideas and we just make them happen. And we hope that something comes out of it. And having kids get involved at such a young age is vital to the success of all of our programs.
Thank you, Valerie.
Sure.
We have a couple more comments here. One is a comment from Marco, who just wanted to say, thank you for sharing your tears. I'll share mine too. If I may say something in short about Indonesia, there we have different scenarios. There are certainly traditions, but these involve small numbers of dogs. There are breedings for meat, and this happens mainly in remote areas and involves small numbers. The worst problems, in my opinion, are the meat trade across the country, like the free-roaming dogs or pet dogs stolen, and number two, the culling of dogs in certain areas. Regarding the meat trade, some believe, for example, similar to what Valerie said, that the dog meat enhances magic power, temperature resistance, sexual power, and other similar things. Kiana Market, you've probably heard about that, I'm sure, and he agrees that education is certainly a possible and powerful answer. And then we have a message from Carolyn who says, thank you, Valerie. That was regarding the bill that you were just discussing. She said, I'm aware of that bill as well. I'm involved in 2 groups on Facebook that are constantly working for House Res 30, which takes up most of my time. I live in MD and would love for you to join me when you come to DC. I met you and Mark in DC on September 14th last year. And she said it would also be great if you could fly a small dog for me to adopt or foster.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to take a moment, if there aren't any other questions, just to thank our special guest today for joining us. This is a really very informative, and I appreciate everybody's ability to work together. We've got several people on the call today, and it's been fun to hear back and forth what everyone has to say, and wanted to let everyone know that we do have our next Hope Summit presentation will be by Lynn Collins, who's actually on the call today as a listener, and she'll be talking about the Mountain Lion Foundation and a lot of initiatives that they're doing to improve our relationships with mountain lions in our country here. So thank you very, very much to Mark and to Kiana and to our co-hosts, Sally and also Joan. We're so grateful to you for bringing this information to us. It's like the ray of hope that we have is all of the amazing work that you're doing in the field. It's profound. And we also really appreciate you sharing your feelings with us. We relate and we are here with you. We feel them too. So thank you to everyone for joining us and to our speakers for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And stay tuned for the replay.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.